Here's the bid summary sheet. Park County Aggregates, stone, gravel, and sand aggregate bid. They listed the prices as opposed to using the summary sheet. LEJ Trucking Incorporated hauling bid.
What was the name on that again?
LE-J Trucking Incorporated.
Okay.
ELLE. Use the bid summary sheet.
A lot of bids this time.
Yeah, we did.
Good deal.
Wholesale drainage supply, corrugated aluminum culverts, and HDPE N12. Use the bid summary sheet for that portion. E3 Bridge, item 3, which I'm not sure what item 3 is, but use the bridge summary sheet, and it is for culverts. Makes sense.
Last but not
Final one
least.
we have is Milestone Contractors, bid requisition 4, asphalt materials. Provide a listing, did not use the material bid list, or that is all of those. I make a motion that we take these under advisement for our next regular scheduled meeting or a special meeting to follow.
Second the motion.
Okay. Discussion is, I will say this much, we have several different companies that provide aggregates for the county. And in the past, we usually accept all bids on that because, not because of the price, sort of because of price, but when you have a project going on in the northern part of the county, if you only have one provider in the south end for X material, it don't make sense. The trucking don't make sense. So we leave it up to the Mike Clyke, the highway superintendent, to make that decision based on trucking. It makes a big difference. So usually on the aggregate stuff, we accept all bids. So I just want to let everybody know that's what we usually do. Can you all attest to that?
Yeah, that's accurate.
We'll lay these out for anybody that would like to inspect the bids following the meeting, the adjournment of the meeting anyway, for a reasonable amount of time.
We are live now, so I'll let you know that. Okay, moving on with Purdue Broadband Team Initiative. Roy Loslog, is she here today?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Purdue University's president, Mung Chang, has as one of his initiatives to improve broadband in the state of Indiana. And so his team has created the Purdue Broadband Team, which is an initiative to improve broadband across the state, broadband access across the state of Indiana. And I do have enough for everyone here as well, because I hope all of you will participate in this as well. Brenda, was it in your packet? Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. That's what I know I had in
Perfect.
this one.
Thank you. Okay. So the very first step in this process is to scan the QR code on the front, what I call the front side of the page. It's the side that has only one QR code on it. And that is to verify your address, whether it's your home, your business, or your organization on the map that is managed by the Federal Communications Commission. And then the next thing you need to do is to verify that you indeed have access to internet at that location. There has been some work by Indiana Farm Bureau in probably within the last 5 years, 3 to 5 years, that started this process. That information has been added to the map. This project is taking that a step further. Okay? So verifying your address is the very first piece. And then if you'll flip the page over, there are 2 QR codes on the back side of that page. The next piece is to run speed tests. And we are asking residents to run lots of speed tests, residents and businesses, lots of speed tests at different times of the day and night. Okay, so if you're like me and you might have problems sleeping, run a speed test. And so we know that folks who are unserved are those that have less than 25 megabits per second download and 3 megabits per second upload, or 25.3 for short. And you are underserved if you have at least that, but not 100/20. Okay? And this does not include satellite or cell service. So eliminate those 2 options. That is not considered broadband for this project. Purdue Extension personnel across the state are involved in this Purdue broadband team, along with Purdue alumni, as well as our Indiana 4-H members and Purdue University students, because we know that those last two groups of folks are the broadband influencers across the country. We also know that Indiana will be receiving close to $870 million from the federal government starting mid to late 2024 to improve broadband across the state. And it's important, I'm sharing this message because it's important for all of us to do our part to make sure that Vermilion County gets their fair share of those dollars. Okay? So three things well, I haven't mentioned the one thing yet, but the first step is to verify your address and that you do have internet at the location that's mentioned on the FCC map, and then run those speed tests, lots of those. And then we also have a piece on the last QR code that I'll talk about is the Affordable Connectivity Program, and that is for households that are considered limited resource households, and we know we have plenty of those in Vermilion County. But this provides $30 per month to those eligible homes to be able to help pay for internet service. Do you have any questions?
What happens to the monies that are collected? Where does that go to from the state or from the federal government? What are those monies used for? Or who do they go to?
Who's collecting? I'm not collecting money.
No, but they're assigning monies. According to this study,
Right.
you'll be assigning monies, or the results of this study will
I don't know
allocate-
who in Indiana will be receiving those funds and distributing them.
And we don't know how.
I do not know.
Okay.
No. I just am doing my part,
Sure.
sharing the
I understand.
information that we need to make sure that the information on the FCC map is correct.
Mhm.
That's critical. And then running those speed tests, and lots of them, to make sure that that accurate information is shared.
Have they not been successful with, this has been a number of different studies being done.
Right.
Have they not been successful with these other studies?
I
Don't
don't
know.
have the information to answer that.
Sure.
So I just know what our task with Purdue Extension is.
Sure.
Very good.
Other
Thank you.
questions? Thank you so much. Thanks.
Moving on, we have the Ernie Powell World War II Museum and Land and Stewart Design, Steve Key and Luke Waltz.
Thank you and good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Steve Key. I'm the president of the Friends of Ernie Pyle Development Fund Incorporated. As most of you know, we've been operating the Ernie Pyle World War II Museum in Dana, Indiana for more than a decade. We took over the operation when the state was deciding it was going to shutter the museum. We thank you for giving us a little time on your agenda today. We want to inform you of our largest project that we've ever taken on. Selfishly, we also want to give you a heads up because we do plan to submit a application for Vermilion County's community grant, one of the grants that come before you as far as deciding which groups are worthy of some of the money from that. So we want to make sure that you're aware of what we're doing and maybe hopefully helping us with phase 1 of the project.
There will also be a council decision too. Let's let you know that.
We'll be glad to talk to the council. With me today is Luke Waltz. He's the project manager with Land Stewart's Design Group. They've been working with the committee that spearheaded this project, helping to turn it from a concept to reality. And I'd like to turn it over to him now to kind of go through what the project is and how we're moving forward on it. So,
great,
Luke?
thanks, Steve. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Welcome. As Steve said, really this is information sharing, and we're really excited about the Ernie Pyle project. And we can just jump right in. We'll give a quick overview of our timeline and where we've been, and then we'll go on to explaining kind of the backstory of the project and the concept design and all of the cool pictures. So where we are right now is we're kind of in between schematic design and the final construction document design and implementation phase. So we've gone through a project of concept design and project visioning. We've been working for about a little over a year now on this process and pulling together all the different bits and pieces. This started as really an idea to honor Ernie Pyle, and the first component, I think, was really Bill Wolf's sculpture. And I think we have an image of that here that Steve's going to hold up. And we also have some in the slideshow as well. But the first thing is this amazing statue of Ernie Pyle. Bill has been working on this meticulously for months now, and we're really excited to find a home for Ernie in his boyhood home, or in the site of his boyhood home. So this is the in progress. This is life size, full size. He's sitting on sandbags with his typewriter, and we want to find a special place for him on the site, not the original site, obviously you know that, but the location where his home currently sits. So that's really the essence of this project. Where do we put Ernie, and how do we make this place special for not only him, but the community surrounding it? So Dana, Vermilion County, and West Central Indiana. So if you want to continue on to the next slide, we've gone through a series of survey studies and on-site visits to determine the current conditions of the project. We won't bore you right now with the technical details of that, but we're really hopeful. We see a lot of encouraging things about being able to build here this amazing community park. So we'll go on to the next slide. This is our current schematic plan that we have on the screen, and Steve has kind of some imagery for the design character of that. The things that are included in this would be a community green space, a public amphitheater for performances, music events, different things throughout the year, sponsored by Ernie Pyle, Friends of Ernie Pyle, or community groups in Dana and around the county. On the kind of north is to the right, so kind of right here in the center, this number 3, which is kind of hard to see, that's where the statue of Ernie Pyle will be located. And as you kind of sift through some more of these images, we'll go to the next slide. We zoom in on some of these specific areas. So This is kind of the sculpture plaza where Ernie Pyle would be located, right in the middle, and around him would be information, some signage, some sculptural elements that will help communicate the story of his life and his impact on the community and really on the military as a whole. So that's the first component. The next slide will go into a picture, kind of a rough sketch. This was early on, and obviously that's not exactly what he'll look like. The next image will show you a little bit more if you weren't able to see what Steve was holding up. Kind of some in-progress studies with Bill Wolf, as well as the more refined. This is almost ready to be cast, so it's cast bronze when it's done, and the longevity of that is it's very, very long time. So he'll be there for indefinitely, which is really, really cool. We're working with Bill on a couple other projects, and you guys are probably familiar with his work as well. So I'd encourage you to go see some of his work. He's a great guy, and we're glad that he's on this project. The next slide will show kind of the overview of the community green space. This is in the space directly north of the Boyhood Home, and it's a great community event space. We have an architect working on a pavilion, so kind of this amphitheater for the performances, which would be state-of-the-art for music, maybe outdoor movies, and other public events that could happen there, festivals, things like that. The next slide will show just an aerial view of that space. And as you can see, the capacity is, it's not a huge space, but it is substantial enough to support a large event. So different configurations, up to maybe 600 or 700 people, kind of in a standing crowd. If you have people sitting down, it could be around 300, 400, something like that. So. And one of the other areas that we're really excited about is the Pyle Legacy Walk. So this is an area of more, if you're going to think about the Ernie Pyle statue in that area as a place to get to know Ernie, this is more about to get to know his legacy and the impact that he's had. So we would be working with other local partners to help gather memorabilia and content that could maybe be interpreted here through other signage elements and seating elements, and also kind of bringing in the veterans component, so the different military branches and a flag courtyard and things like that. And one of the really cool areas that I'm excited about personally is the Combat Vet Healing Garden. So a lot of PTSD, war vets, there's all kinds of things and studies that have been shown that plants and kind of the senses that they provide. So I'm a landscape designer, and my background is in landscape design, horticulture, plant elements. All of that would be factored into here, and for any kind of veteran coming to visit and learn about Ernie Pyle, this would be an area for them to also experience a sense of healing and restoration in their personal life, their mental health, things like that, which is also very important in today's culture and age. Next slide. And there's just a rendering kind of depicting what that could look like. So breaking it down, how do we actually achieve this vision? We have potentially 5 phases. This is kind of broken out into some smaller chunks. We have some preliminary costing, but kind of overall project vision, we're thinking this will end up in the 800 to maybe right around a little over $1 million in cost for construction.
How much was it again?
800,000 to $1 million is about the range. Could be a little more, could be a little less, depending on when this happens and escalation and things like that. So we're hopeful that we can begin phase 1 in the next year and move on to phase 2, which is where Ernie Pyle will sit, maybe fall of next year or beyond. Phase 1 is a really critical piece. It's kind of the nuts and bolts. We need new restrooms at Ernie Pyle Park, so I think there's an outhouse there currently, and that's difficult for veterans to come use and other people to, as they're experiencing, to have a really great museum experience, but then the restroom facilities are kind of behind. So that garage that you see right there, that number 2 area, that's where the new restrooms will be retrofitted into the facility. And yeah, donor opportunities, this is all the different areas that are potentially available to have either a naming sponsor or contribute to the cause and help support. So it could be the Britton Luther Memorial Plaza or the Britton Luther, Community Green, if you so choose.
Just takes 800,000, Brittany, put your name
That's
on it.
right.
See me
Or
at
anybody
your
else
meeting.
want to put their name on it.
That's right. Yep. So there's a lot of opportunities, and we know this takes a community. We know this takes a lot of people, and a lot of investment and support. So we believe it's possible, and I think you guys are the right community to bring it to help support that. So, thank you.
Excellent presentation.
Yeah. When's the big date that you're projecting out to trying to pull this all together to start it? Or did you already say that?
Well, it's the time frame is kind of in the air because always funding
Right.
is the big key. I've always been proud of the fact of the board since we took over operation of the museum, and we're talking about a group of volunteers who never ran a museum before, but we have finished in the black every year, and we want to maintain that record. So we want to make sure as we move forward that we are fully funded. We see this project kind of similar to the project we did last summer with the visit by the Vietnam Traveling Memorial Wall, which we may have been the ones that kind of initiated, but really became a community project. I mean, there were hundreds of volunteers, thousands of people showed up, all the sponsorship that came in. I think it was something that Vermilion County could take pride in because of what was able to be done, because they participated so much in making it happen. We could have never done it by ourselves. We see this project as another project. It is more than the museum. It's a community project. It's enhancing what we think is a gem of a museum, but as Luke mentioned, with phase one, if we can get some permanent ADA accessible restrooms, that'll enhance the experience of anybody who comes and visits the museum who can't handle the stairs to go down to the basement of the farmhouse to use a restroom. Other aspects we talked about, the statue, the area that's we're going to be having a lot of trees planted, so it'll be a very nice park area where now it's kind of just a open grassy area north of the museum. With the stage eventually, what it does is it enhances the whole location there, and as you know, the more amenities that the community has, the more likely you're going to be able to keep the younger generation to stay in here because they've got places they can go, whether it's to see live music, a movie, a play, whatever the case may be. So we think it's a community project beyond just the museum project. It is going to be the Ernie Pyle and Veterans Memorial Park, so it is another opportunity for us to recognize the service that's done by the 5 branches of the armed forces. We think that Ernie Pyle is always going to be tied to the armed services because he was the one who, during World War II, suggested that the soldiers who are actually in combat get extra pay. What he called was fight pay. And Congress listened to him, and they did institute combat pay, which is still in existence and still available to any U.S. soldier, sailor, Marine, etc., who is actually in combat. So we think Ernie Pyle is going to always be tied to the armed services, and we want to recognize that here and make sure that people understand that recognition. So phase one, as he mentioned, is going to be, we hope, around $80,000. We are going to be seeking a grant to hopefully complete phase one. We have some funds to contribute towards that. We don't have the amount to totally make it happen, which is why we're going to be going for that community grant. We understand that the county council, the commissioners want to see those grant monies go as far as they can, which is why we want to make sure that you know that we will have some skin in the game, and your money will be stretched farther because of our contribution.
I see a lot of historical grants come out, and no one usually applies for them, but they're usually 50-50. The percentage is pretty high on it, Britton, ain't usually. But what I'm saying is that's an excellent. What I like to see is with the funding that we have is use it for the seed money to make your money bigger.
Yeah.
That, to me, that's what this whole thing is. You come with something that presents a you know, a match or something, I think it really increases that. But are you familiar with the historical grants that have out every year?
Yeah, in fact, we got a grant from the state to restore and preserve the siding of the farmhouse, the 1850s farmhouse where Ernie was born. And we've also got our eye on that particular grant too, because we're going to be needing to replace the wood shake roof in the next 3 or 4 years, and we think that'll be another grant that'll be ideal for that kind of an operation.
Do you know what the max is on a historical grant with the state?
I do not remember what the max was, but I do think that you're correct as far as that grant, that they like the 50-50 share.
Yeah.
I've got to work with our treasurer and see what we've got available for phase 1. I mean, obviously, because this is a multi-phase project, we don't want to spend all of our funds right off the bat, and then we've got nothing to use to help as seed money down the road. So I can't promise you that when the grant comes to you that it will be a 50-50, but we're going to try to make it hopefully as enticing as we can for you to be able to see the value in putting some of those community fund grants towards our project.
But when will that date be that you need an answer on that?
Well, we'll be submitting, I think the end of December 31st is what I understand is the next deadline for putting a grant in. So we'll get the paperwork into the Community Foundation. I don't know what the process is and how far along it is before they would present it to you. So we're looking at 2024 before we would assume that there might be any kind of approval. Then from once we have the funds, do you think we'll be able to move in 2024? Or?
Yeah, I would say so.
So it looks like that we could get phase 1 going and completed in 2024, which again, you know, from a personal standpoint, you know, I hate to see our visitors coming during the summer, and if someone has to go to the restroom, if they can't handle stairs, that they're using a portalette. So we'd really like to get those restrooms, and that's why we've put that into phase 1. It's not fancy or sexy, but it's a real enhancement to the operation, and we'll have available for like the firefighters festival, where you know we can make those restrooms available at times like that.
You're saying a total project's $800,000 roughly?
Roughly 800 to maybe $1 million. I mean, Luke is probably like you do your budgets. You kind of do your expenses high and your revenue low because you don't want to have an ugly surprise. Obviously, we hope that we'll be able to come in under that. We know that there are certain vendors and talents in the community that may be willing to either give us discounts on providing things, whether it's concrete work or other things, or you know, landscaping and things like that. So we're hoping to keep that cost down as much as possible by utilizing the talents and the support that we think we can get from the local community.
I will donate the excavating on it.
Oh, well, that's great. And you're on the record.
I will. I mean, I said that previously to Kevin. I think I said to Kevin.
I think you've mentioned before that you give us some support, so really appreciate that, and yeah. I'm sure Luke will take advantage of that opportunity.
I mean, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back this stuff.
Well, that's above and beyond your job as a commissioner, but we really appreciate it. And that's the kind of support that we're talking about, that we think that we can help keep the cost down as much as possible.
The other thing is, back when the Vermillion Trails Associated started, a lot of us had a vision to do something that would connect Montezuma and the other areas with Dana. Mm-hmm. And I would like to see eventually that a person could get on a bike at Montezuma and take the trail and go all the way to Dana on a daily trip and visit the Ernie Powell Museum. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean, and drive their bicycle back or something like that. And I think it's very, very important, the project you're doing. I also think it makes a big difference in our local community and future planning of how do we bring people here. Mm-hmm. And that's just another big part of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for the trails people, but I know there was some discussion about having kind of a leg of the trail that would come right up to Dana and kind of be a trailhead right at our museum, which is fantastic. We would love that.
But your first phase is how much? You said
the first phase is going to be between, Luke estimates between $80,000 and $120,000, but think he's comfortable that
It's a
we're
little
probably
high,
more
yeah.
closer towards the 80,000 than the 120.
Now, is this gonna be one phase 1 year, next phase the next year? If it does, I'm saying from historical funding, maybe you get 2 grants out of this
That's right.
per year.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say for certainty because so much of it's going to depend on the ability we have to get more grant money. I mean, as far as our operating budget, it's a small budget. You know, when we took over the operation, I think we had maybe 30 or 40,000, dollars just to run the museum every year. And obviously, we don't want to get out ahead of our skis with a huge project and hurt the actual operation. So whether it's every year or not, that would be great, but I wouldn't want to stand here and commit to anything because we just don't know how the funding's going to come through. And we're exploring, various state grants, local grants. A lot of our operating comes from donations. We've been very fortunate with the Health Township government unit that with their support, despite, I mean, it's a great museum, but we do not charge anyone admission. And that's part of our agreement with Health Township. And it's worked out very well for us because there's no barrier for anybody to come and see us because we're not going to charge them any kind of admission.
Okay.
Thank you for looking forward on this.
Yeah.
These are the type of projects that the county needs to be able to look at, not just what's in front of you, but looking down the road. And I appreciate you taking this time and expending the monies now to ensure the future, if you will. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch. You can get hold of me
Sounds
anytime.
good. I will, thanks.
Vermilion Rise Solar Agreement.
Save that all.
Yeah, Luke, is there any way we can get that emailed to us too? That
Yeah, they're gonna save it all.
sweet.
I'll help them save it all.
Thank you. Very, very impressive presentation.
You might try to schedule some events locally with some different groups and do these presentations that you have. I think it would be very.
I think we will be doing that. We just handed a signed agreement with the Land Stewards Design Group to create kind of a marketing brochure. So we've got something that when we go and not only make the presentation, we've got something to kind of leave behind and encourage people that they can follow up with any kind of donations or type of support. So we're hoping to get the word out, and I was glad to see that the Clintonian was here today, and got my fingers crossed that with any kind of story that they do, again, that helps get the word out and builds support for the community.
Great. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Hannah Clendenning. I've met, I think, all of you before at various executive sessions from Barnes & Thornburg. My colleague Rick Hall and I have worked extensively with the commissioners, with the council, with the reuse authority over the last year or so to negotiate these agreements and this deal that we're working towards with the Oregon or Vermilion Rise Solar project. So currently, it's a 185 megawatt project. The current status of things is that the council has approved an abatement, a 10-year, 100% abatement. That abatement is conditioned on entering into the form of economic development agreement that they approved and has not substantially changed since they approved it back in, September. So essentially, kind of in exchange for this abatement, the county is going to be paid in 4 equal payments. It's going to be a total of $10.8 million just cash up front. So they can use that for any lawful purpose. You appropriate it the same way you would any other form of monies. So that would be paid, again, in 4 installments. I think the first installment is a little bit less, and then they balance out over the next.
They're based over 4 years, the first 4 years?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So you're getting it more upfront rather than up the entire course of the abatement. So the economic development agreement provides some other protections for the county. There's a minimum assessed value that's provided just in case, there's a change of law, change of investment. We're guaranteed that the assessed value will not drop below the amount provided in the agreement, which I think is roughly $73 million.
One of the things I think that ought to be said, because some people think that since you give a tax abatement, that property goes off the record and it's not being assessed value. The property tax is still being paid on that property as normal property, correct?
Correct. And
So that's
you
something
can't
people
abate the
need to know.
land,
It don't
it's
go
just-
away.
Right, and you can't abate the land, it's just the
You're
project.
just abating the real property on top.
Correct,
Yeah.
So yeah, and then it also provides for pilot payments in case there's a change of law, essentially just guaranteeing that the county has every protection available to it in the event that anything changes with regards to the company, investment amounts, assessment rates, that kind of thing. I know it's usually a concern with these projects that the company might sell the agreement to and just sort of leave it in everyone's laps, or sell the project. We do provide assignment provisions that guarantee that any successor would have to comply with every term of the 3 agreements that we have before you, so that is secured in that way. And then lastly, for the economic development agreement, should the company go bankrupt or default on any of the economic development payments that are promised, we do require some sort of financial guarantee. So we give them the option of a parent guarantee from the parent company, a bond, or a letter of credit from a highly rated creditor. So I can just go through the other 2 agreements first if you want. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those, or however you want to do this.
How do we know who the parent company is?
They would
Especially if it sells.
So they would, if they choose to do the guarantee, the parent guarantee as their mode of the assurance, they would enter into a guarantee agreement, the form of which we've attached to the economic development agreement. I believe it's Mitsubishi would be the parent. They've already named them.
Yep.
So
Until it sells, then it may be some other company, correct?
correct. I think the guarantee, I think they would transfer along with that, but it would still, all of the same mechanisms would remain in place, and so all the same securities would be insured for the county. So, as part of the covenants in the economic development agreement, in order to fully comply with that agreement, they also have to comply with these 2 other agreements we have, which are a decommissioning agreement and a road use agreement. The decommissioning, this is a lot of things that's provided for in your guys' solar and zoning ordinances. So if the project is abandoned or just at the end of its useful life, there are certain rules in place for when it gets removed, who removes it, who pays for that. And so this agreement sort of just memorializes the ordinance requirements, as well as providing a little extra clarity and protections for the county in doing so. So the main thing, or one of the main things, is that it requires a bond for covering the net removal costs of decommissioning, which the developer would pay. And we provide that bond has to be in an amount of 125% of whatever the estimated net removal costs, because the bond itself is reevaluated every 5 years, just with inflation, changing market conditions, that kind of thing. So when they initially get that financial assurance, it's supposed to be 125% of the estimated amount to decommission, just to provide for any flexibility cushion with increasing prices. In compliance with the ordinance, it then provides that if the project is abandoned, which means that it hasn't produced electricity for 12 months, it then has to be fully decommissioned, which means removal of all the facilities, everything, within 18 months. Same thing if there's like a natural disaster or force majeure event. They can either assure that within 24 months of a major event like that, that it will be up and running again, or else it has to follow the same 18-month removal process. It does then also provide that should the company itself fail to decommission the project, the county can draw on that decommissioning bond and enter the property and decommission it itself. This agreement is a 3-party agreement with the reuse authority, so then if the county doesn't decommission, or if it elects not to, the reuse authority has the right to enter just on their property, the portion of the project that's in their territory, and decommission those portions of the facilities. Any questions on that one before I move on to the road use?
So how, if there's changes in the ordinance then, or parts of the ordinance have been deemed not legal, how does that affect these agreements? do they re-enter into them, or is there allowances?
So that's part of why we specifically provide for these terms in the agreement. So let's say that the ordinance becomes more lax in some way. This still would guarantee that these abandonment timelines, the decommissioning timelines, the bond requirements, they're still provided for contractually, and the company would still have to uphold those.
And who's the bond held by? Or
It's-
not held, but by who's the
It's
recipient?
the same requirements as we list, like in the guarantee provision for the EDA. I think it's, and this is pursuant to the ordinance as well. So the financial assurance can be in the form of a bond, letter of credit, cash, or other surety approved by the county. If it's a surety or performance bond, it has to be accompanying the latest version of companies holding certificates of authority as acceptable sureties on federal bonds. And if it's a letter of credit, it has to be a bank with a AA3 or a higher rating from Moody's, AA minus from S&Ps.
And what are the performance standards to be able to reclaim this property?
Do you mean like when can you start decommissioning? Or?
No, what are the standards and specifications that'll be built back to?
So I know that
The reason why I've asked this is that the
Sure.
state has a number, I mean, they have lawyers sitting there that administer these bonds for the landfills and for the coal industry and for the reclamation DNR. We don't have that. There's a whole superstructure behind this that actually administers these bonds. And to be able to do that, I assume the county's gonna hold these bonds, is the reason why I'm asking. Is the
The-
county responsible for this, or the recipient of the bond?
the county is the named beneficiary of the bond. The developer would be the one financing.
And who
those bonds.
administers the bonds?
Again, that would depend. It's, what did I say? It would have to be an affirmed company in this like standardized list of acceptable creditors that we use frequently in our business with municipal finance. Trying to think.
Part of the problem I have with this is the county doesn't set any standards as far as reclamation if there is a failure and we have to take it over. If the bond is actually given to the county, that means that the bonding company found that it's not reasonable for them to be able to reclaim it within reason, or assurances that they have the monies to do that, which puts the county in a very poor position at that point. In fact, it could be millions of dollars of problems. We also have no agreement on these properties. These are private properties. We have no right of entry to these properties. So how does the county ever go about doing any type of bonding, any type of reclamation, but yet we're still responsible for going in and reclaiming these grounds to no standard?
Sure. So I think what you're getting at, and please correct me if I'm wrong. So in order to draw on that bond and to decommission the project, so step one, to get the money to do it, you just have to follow the terms of this agreement. So if it hasn't been producing electricity and if the developer themselves has not decommissioned as they are supposed to under the agreement within certain timeframes outlined here, then the county has the right to enter that land. The same way they would have the right if there was like another zoning violation and the land was not in compliance with the zoning ordinance. It's kind of the same idea there. And that's...
We don't hold bond on any of that.
No, that's right, but this is just a guarantee that the county will not be paying out of pocket for the cost of removing those structures.
But there's no standards to build to or to reclaim to, i.e. the reclamation acts and so forth are volumes of how you will reclaim, what your responsibilities are. None of that exists here. So how is the county supposed to be able to reclaim on property that we have no right of entry?
I think, this is my understanding, is under the zoning ordinance, it would grant you a right to enter under these conditions and remove the property in conjunction with the landowner's lease rights. And there's only 3 county landowners that are at play here, but I think their lease still, in conjunction with this agreement, would give the county the right before them to decommission. So
What are
I
the
might have to
minimum,
look at your zoning ordinance a little bit more closely just to see how that would
are there any
go.
minimum requirements for the amount of energy to be produced? Is it 1 kilowatt, 100 kilowatt, a gigawatt?
For purposes of the decommissioning agreement, it has to be producing 0 energy.
So if they do just 1 watt, then they are still good for the year.
I think so, yeah.
Is
Ally,
that not a problem?
can you speak to like the likelihood, like is it, I don't know like practically speaking how these facilities work and if there's like a range of output that the
I mean, there can be a range of output, but under the typical contract terms, you do have, sorry. Under the contract terms, the facility would have minimums that it needs to meet to meet its production rate under the contract. I believe that can be anywhere from, ballpark 90%. I can't envision a situation where it would be economical to operate a facility only at one,
What I'm saying is that it doesn't kick into any of the other requirements as long as it's producing at least 1 watt. There's no minimum requirement for them to produce in a given year.
That's correct, but again, I mean, if the project's not meeting its contractual minimums, then it's...
But it's a way that you can
There's-
forestall foreclosure, bond, the forfeiture of the bond, etc.
They
Anyway.
would still be required to uphold their end of the bargain under all 3 of these agreements. If they're producing electricity and in business, they have to comply with these agreements to get the abatement, and then also to, just to comply with them. And if they were to go into default, that's when we have those guarantee provisions that would take over and ensure that the county still gets what it's owed.
Well, and Oregon has invested a lot of money within the last, 3-4 years into this project. I see the concern you have that they may only, they could in theory produce 1, whatever it is, but I mean, you guys have invested, millions into this project? So I don't think Oregon would have any inclination to, produce the small end of it. I don't think you guys are going into this to...
No, I can't envision a market condition that would make that a business decision that anyone, us or anyone else would make.
Well, if there was guarantees, we wouldn't need a bond, so anyway. Also, I thought, is Orion still the principal involved in this? I thought the company sold a year ago or so. No? It's still the same structure, same people, same... Okay.
We need to
Yeah.
move on with this. One of the things that today is only the first reading, correct?
No, so this would just be, you would just adopt a resolution today if you choose to.
What I'm saying is, we'll bring it today, and I usually act on the 2nd. It gives us some time to...
I didn't see this. I saw something come across at 7 o'clock last night. We were expecting something months ago, actually.
Yeah,
And it
understood.
didn't come across till 7 o'clock.
What I'm
or
saying is-
thereabouts last night.
I'm in my mindset is you made your presentation day, give us till next meeting to look at it and to do the final on it, is what I'm saying, because we've got a lot of time going on today. And then Britton has more time to call and talk to you and discuss it. If that'd be okay, Britton, and that'd be...
Yeah, I'm not in favor of passing the resolution today.
Yeah, that's what I'm
especially the
saying.
road use.
Today
In
is the
general,
day.
I think the agreement, if it's still the same as what we were in executive session
Yeah.
anyway, or similar, very close to that anyway, I don't know that I have any
What I'm saying is,
issues.
you'd
but-
have time to talk to them directly about this, and we can move on.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, it's your prerogative ultimately, and I'm happy to answer as many questions as I can
Mhm.
today. Especially, I think the road use agreement is the one we've covered the least from executive sessions that we've had and stuff like that. But if you want, I can cover that now. But as far as approving the resolution, you can. Procedurally, there's nothing preventing you from doing that today if you choose to. You could also adopt the resolution but execute the agreements at a later date, however you want to do that. And to be clear, so if you were to approve the resolution today, the only agreement we would ask you to execute so far is the EDA, because in the EDA it provides, just in light of the fact that anything to do with the decommissioning and the road use agreement, a lot of that is kind of up in the air until they have a lot more details nailed down about construction. So there's, I think, like 7 or 8 exhibits that are to be attached to the road use agreement, for example, that are like maps, driveways, like underground crossings, that kind of thing. And so in the EDA we provide that, as part of this agreement you also have to comply with the road use and decommissioning, but those 2 agreements are not to be entered into, or they have to be entered into by no later than 30 days prior to the start of construction. So there's a lot of time, because I think the estimated start date for construction is June 25, so.
The only thing is, I think inside this it says that we're approving the road use agreements and other agreements also if it was signed today.
It would be approving the forms, so that means just the general substance is in place and that's approved, but we could still make small changes and adjust as needed, because part of it contemplates that there would be these amendments and attachments and that kind of thing. So as long as the form itself, so the main, you know, the meat of the agreement is something that's amenable to you guys, you could approve the form today, you don't execute until a later date, and small changes can be made.
Brenda, can you put it back on for next meeting? Okay, with you all?
I agree. I'd like to read the whole agreement that we received anyway.
That's fine.
And that'll be a night meeting 2 weeks from today.
John, have you reviewed the agreement?
Yeah, as they've come in, yes.
You received the one last night?
I haven't seen the one, if one came last night.
We
I
just
haven't
need more
seen it
time.
yet,
We're not
so.
against anything here, we just need more
No, I
time
understand, yeah.
You know what I mean?
This looks like
Grace's
a positive.
line.
I know I'm asking negative questions, but.
He can ask you questions all he
But,
wants later.
I mean,
Has more time,
I'm in favor of moving forward with this. It's just
just need some clarification.
No.
specifics
understood.
there. So
Okay.
I don't mean
Now,
to
you're with
cast
the
it.
CPA firm, right?
I'm with Barnes and Thornburg, with the
Yeah.
attorneys for the county.
And you're with,
I'm withOrden.
yeah, I wanted to make sure we knew exactly who was what. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're gonna let Florinda get up here and get stuff done. She's got a busy day today and she needs to get on with her work. Florinda is our treasurer.
Florinda Pruitt, Vermillion County Treasurer. And the October interest report, you guys have a copy. The total from the main account was $105,102.41. The interest on CDs was $48,224.17. We have some funds in Trust Indiana. That interest was $9,342.15. The grand total for the month was $162,688.73, which gives us a total for the year of $1,433,144.12. And then I'm also here for transfer of the cash counter from our office to the clerk's office. They handle money, not as much as we do, of course, but they don't currently have a counter. So the clerk and I have both agreed that it could be beneficial to their office, so.
I have no problem with transfer of asset. We just need just an interlocal agreement between the two of you.
So we need to write that ourselves.
Or we can ask John to do it if he would.
I can do that.
Nice to have it on record for you.
That way, when it comes up missing out of your office, somebody will have a potential idea of where it went.
Very good.
Do you need any other information?
I'll email you.
Okay.
We'll figure
Alright.
it out.
So Florinda has the, I seen the new copiers got delivered the other day. You're the first office holder I've seen. Everything working good, or? Or
There's definitely a learning curve on those. They're loud, very loud. I didn't feel like we really needed one, but we have one, so we're doing our best to work with it. When I was in Brenda's office, she was pretty frustrated, as we have been too, so
Okay.
it is what it is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next we have Board of Health. Come up about the septic.
You need to put cushions on the benches. Everybody agree? Okay. The, Kim Hawkins from Vermillion County Health Department Dr. Marcus apologizes not being able to be here today, she had work, so that's a good doctor thing. The reason I'm here is because the state of Indiana passed legislation that changed some of the rules and guidelines of the septic system. And they asked each county to change their ordinances, make things, they go through them and make sure that we're not doing something more stringent than the law. And we discovered a few changes, and Tim asked me, which is very important, that we point out the differences we found. And I'll kind of go through them. What I'm here today, I have to get a number for this ordinance, present it to you today, and then come back next time and get approved. Is that, any step there?
About right.
Open up. Okay. The first ordinance was tank size. In our ordinance of 2020, we have, and it was adopted with all the other counties in the state, 1,000 gallon tank was required for every 1 and 2 bedroom home. The state law, they never changed that, and most manufacturers don't even make a 750 gallon tank anymore. So we was within guidelines, but in our new ordinance, which we placed in there, is that we've made that correction.
All required for a minimum of 1,000 gallon.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that's the way it is. And that goes up by sizing, and you have to go bigger when you got more, a bigger house. But that's a minimum, is 1,000 gallons. Another change that we picked up and put in the original copy that was sent to you was on the distribution box, a riser would be placed. And I've talked to some contractors, talked to the state, and they actually said that was about the most useless thing there could ever be, would be a riser off your distribution box, because it really would maybe hurt the operation of the distribution box, but really wouldn't help it in any way. And it basically was just to mark it if snow was on the ground where the distribution box was, so they could handle it different ways.
Was it
So-
the distribution box, or was it the
It's
septic
distribution
tank?
box is
Or
where
the
your
distribution
tank
box.
goes into, and then
Yeah.
goes out into your finger
But
system.
did they mean the tank, not the distribution box?
No, the riser.
Talking about a riser on top.
Just a little riser
I
comes to the ground.
understand that it wasn't a misnomer that it was supposed to be on the septic tank, not on the distribution box?
No.
No, it's always
Distribution
been there.
box.
Always
Okay.
been septic
There was
tank.
an extra one. We had that in the original, we've taken that out, it's gone. And set aside was another thing kicked around. I don't think they're gonna require this set aside, but we placed in ours, any property over 2 acres, we suggest, it's not an order, they don't have to do it, but we would like for them to have a set aside in mind, so that they wouldn't, the second best spot to put your septic system wouldn't be built over, you know, and then they come up and don't have any room to do it. But we're not gonna require that. As a requirement, we suggest they try to do it anything over 2 acres. One of the guys pointed out, one of the people I talked to about that, was somebody would go out and invest in a lot, let's say pay $50,000 for a lot, and you get out there and you got a place to put 1 system, but you wouldn't have a place to put 2. Now, would that kill that deal? You know, would you just have $50,000 lot you can't build on? So we watched our wording of that so that it just says we suggest they try to find that. That would be a builder's best interest to give that to their whoever's building the house, people owns it. That was a change. 750 I talked about. Oh, and this is only changed because again, it's just kind of a housekeeping thing. We always said 3 borings for a soil test. And that is not in the state law. Nowhere in the state law says you have to do 3 borings. You have to have it tested, but 1 boring would work. And on this technical review panel is a soil scientist, and he's already brought that up, that he doesn't want that in the ordinances because some properties, I guess, wherever he works at, 1 boring does it, you know, because it's all the same. You just do 1, which I think most owners is going to go ahead and require 3, and we would suggest, and I think I talked to our one of our soil scientists that we use, and he said he always does 3 to find the best location, you know. And so, but we don't need it in the ordinance, so that's been removed from the originally you received to now.
So you're saying to change it, they only required to do 1 soil boring? You're saying you're change it to only have to do 1 soil boring for a...
They could do it that way. That's what the soil scientist on the state board, the state panel, informed them that. That's not always required because you've got basically the same amount, but as you've seen, Tim, soil borings can really vary somewhat, especially water table. Water table can be higher in one area where you might be thinking about the system. So say there's 3 and we size it to 1 and they build it on 3 and it's the soil or water table's higher and it fails. We got to make sure we document that.
Why can't we require that? And we can always be more stringent, but we can't get less. Why can't we require it for 3?
We could put that in.
I think it's very important.
Kim, is it not up to the soil scientist is supposed to review the property and make a determination, correct?
He does the initial visit and gives me what he finds. He establishes water table, limiting layer, type of soil, and
but he provides a judgment to you as to what should be required for that property, right?
He does a loading rate.
Well, yeah, he gives me what's there, and then I use the state format and fit it together. You know, different requirements, how much depth between the bottom of the trench to the limiting layer and above the water table. I do that, and then we give that to the people getting ready to put the system in as a guideline.
Where I was going with this is that shouldn't it be up to the soil scientist whether he wants 1, 3, 5, 10, whatever it is, to be able to certify
I don't
property?
think it ought to be, because I mean, if we're taking care of our county better by doing 3, I think it provides a better alternative. I mean, it's more of a thorough. I mean, they can go by they can look up on the soil reports anyway. You know how they can look on a soil report, pull it up, and they can practically tell what's there anyway. But what if there's a deviation in there? You know.
Okay.
From my standpoint, I would like to see them keep 3 required.
Let me check and see if
more
that's
better data. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think they think it's a big problem, because I don't think
They do it anyway.
think anyone is going to do 1. I mean, if you're paying a guy to come do it, why wouldn't
Why
you
won't it be
say,
a third less or something, $200 off?
I
mean,
want
it's
this
$400.
location, check this and this, you know. So, but I'll check on that and see if we need to make that change, and we'll just note it. I go along with what Tim says on that. I just don't know if we require that in our ordinance, or we can just leave that as is.
They always do 3 anyway.
Oh, yeah, but it's not in the state law. See, that's where it is. They didn't really have to do 3. They didn't really have to do 1,000 gallons. They could do 750, but nobody makes 750. So time has erased some of it. The ordinance has gotten older, and we just need to tweak it a little bit. But I'll see if that's a requirement. And see, is that it? I think that's about the only changes we had.
We do have that as state law now. The filter's required on the outflow of septic, right?
Right. And that's in there, so. The only thing was eliminate the riser, require 1,000-gallon tank, and there was another one. But, we was talking about the soil sample, soil test.
So we doing this as a first reading today then?
That's what I'd like,
Is that
if
what-
you pass it.
Or just, I mean, say this is a first reading so we could potentially pass it at the next meeting.
Gives other people an opportunity to look at it too.
Yeah.
Make a public comment if they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like, from my standpoint, I do this all the time, and I would like to see that they require 3. I mean, they're already doing it anyway, and why get looser on this? You got more, what if they missed a spot and there was a better spot, and that's just good data. That's
And
good data.
I would relay back to you and the state if they think one's good or whatever. I mean, I'm going to take the recommendation of you guys. I don't really have an opinion of keeping it at 3 or going back down to 1.
And I didn't bring this up, and I know everybody's butts are hurting sitting on that hardwood out there without pads, but anyway, the board is made up of course, from the state, but they've got contractors on the board, they've got soil scientists on the board, they got somebody involved in everything. And when you have a board like that, I think so far maybe the first 3 counties that's turned theirs in, all have been denied. And like I said, the soil scientist picked up on saying 3.
Yeah.
He said, well, you don't have to. That's a difference. That's a difference in the board. And the same thing, we kind of have the advantage of knowing kind of what they didn't want to see. So,
Does this address, or do you get involved when there's a remodel of a home?
it addresses it in there, yes.
Have you worked with our area plans so that when they let building permits or
I've
remodel
talked to the
permits,
area plan, and we're going to talk,
they
make sure
understand?
they're going to look at our rules and make sure that's covered in their rules.
Okay.
And have a checkoff list for you to actually
As I
check
told
off?
you, and Tim realizes this too, there's just some areas in our county, subdivisions that are just almost impossible. They put a system in there, but boy, they're gonna be hard up to put a second system in.
I have a problem with that, really. I mean, with the lot size versus, in my opinion, when a lot should be big enough to have two places there for a septic system in case one fails. Because they sell it to the person and it works, and then what if it fails, and the person has a problem. And I think
Well,
sometimes
boy,
the size of the lots are pretty limited.
One more, then I'm sorry, I didn't read my thing. Holding tanks.
Holding tanks.
Holding tanks. We are going to require paperwork be turned in to us to make sure they take care of the tank.
Is
There's
a
gonna
holding
be
tank
some
already been approved?
responsibility. It's legal,
It's approved by the state of Indiana.
yeah.
So in other words,
But
if
there's
you-
gonna have to be an alarm placed on it to show when it gets 2/3 full. Holding tank is just, there's no finger system to it, it just holds it. And they have to pump it as they go. And some areas like hunting cabins, if you got a bathroom in your garage, they're, in the past, they've had to put a finger system in. That'd be sized as 1 bedroom. Now that's going to change, and that's in our ordinance. And if you'll read under section G or something, I think, it explains that. But it's very important.
Thank you.
That's a big change, and I think it's for the better of it.
okay. Very good, we will.
Read it,
And then,
pass it later.
sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
I will go over this briefly on the next program we started, unless you got something to say about that. We started a program here in the county. We are working on it. I think this will set Vermillion County apart from everybody else as far as the standard of have good water for our county, residential and commercial. We're starting a program called Get the Lead Out, and Dr. Paula Market and the Board of Health and Eric Scheidler and I are putting this program together. We do have a letter from Eric today. We'll have another letter from the Board of Health. We're looking at putting together a testing program for the entire county. Some people do not realize the danger of wells. They do not understand the danger of lead and copper, and there's going to be some education done. We'd like to see all the wells in the county tested. I do have someone I do know that their son died from a well. E. coli was the situation that got him. So there's a lot of importance to this. This program will help, I think. Lead is something that bothers youth, young people, and we're going to start this program, and it's going to be probably a $150,000 program, and I'll be asking the ARP money for $100,000. The Board of Health is going to be putting in money, putting a lot in the advertising, and Eric Scheidler is going to be involved too, because he's been involved with the well testing during the fair time. And so this is a great program. You'll hear more about it. We call it Get the Lead Out, and it's a very important part of our county and helping our youth and in their development. So you'll hear more from that. Open issues, historical marker. We want to get George and Cheryl up here. Appreciate them come briefly say what you got to say, and I'll help you sum it up.
Okay. Kind of got interested in history several years ago. I met Sean Floyd of Cayuga up at the gathering at the crossing. The other two members, Mike and Connie Warner, we got together, and they were talking a few years ago at one of the events. Sean was wanting to see about getting a historical marker put in Cayuga for the Piankashaw village. It was along the Vermilion River. The Piankashaw was a branch of the Miami tribe that was the main tribe here in Indiana. You also had the Wea. Back in 1830s, when the natives were moved west of the Mississippi, the Kaskaskia, the Wea, the Piankashaw, and the Peoria merged. So their representation is in Oklahoma. We were wanting to go through the Indiana Historical Bureau, and earlier this year, or this summer, I talked to Casey Pfeiffer, who is the head of the Marker Division of the Indiana Historical Bureau, and I had some questions concerning some of the historical references. She forwarded what I had to Jill Weiss. She's a Bureau historian. She's very much interested in this subject. Basically, the Indiana Historical Bureau, they kind of prioritize minority groups, which Native Americans falls under that. Casey did mention too, when I talked to her on the phone, that they would like to see more historical markers in this county. Jill, the historian, we had emailed back and forth, and she has offered to help lead the research on primary sources. Indiana Historical Bureau wants primary sources to cover the background on these markers. Basically what we have is secondary sources, which the history of Park and Vermilion counties is included in that secondary sources. A lot of good information in that reference, but it all comes under their approval. We're going by the application that they have out for this year as a guideline. The application for each year is available in April. It has to be turned in to them by July, completed. They get together with a review board in September to go over these applications, and then they will decide what they will go with. Now, going through all of this, there's no guarantee that we can get the marker. It's up to their approval. Right now, we're gathering all of the necessary information to work out this application, which I've got a copy here I can leave if you want to look at it. There's a blank application, 6 pages long, and there's the guidelines for that. We're looking right now, hopefully, to try to get the marker installed on the fairgrounds. We figure that would be a safe location and where everybody would have access to that. Really, our goal is to try to bring a lot of this history out to the people in the community, because the vast majority of the community are really unaware of the history that's in this area. And the Pialkashaw Village, it was along the Vermilion River, is one of those topics that people's not familiar with. I'm basically kind of focused on that particular marker. Cheryl here has done research on Major John Chun, who was basically the founder of Universal. He was the last commander of Fort Harrison. So she can kind of present that a little bit. Plus, we had to come up with a name for our group, because on these historical markers at the bottom it says erected, it gives the year, Indiana Historical Bureau, and so we had to come up with a name. Sean Floyd had suggested going with Vermilion County Heritage Alliance.
Good deal.
That would kind of take in some other projects, because there's some other projects that's been under works that we need funding for.
Okay.
The going price right now for historical marker is $3,300. Plus there will be additional expenses like the concrete to set the post. I suggested that we put up some sort of barrier around the area of the marker, because these markers have been broken. The Harrison Crossing marker up by North Vermilion has been broken in the past. Tim and I got together and we worked a project to put a historical marker in Shepherdsville on Roulette Trading Post. That was broken basically by lawn mowing equipment. What they did is they put like a concrete fire ring around that. Sean suggested maybe putting posts and concretes to create a barrier to prevent damage.
We also did Henry Dana Washburn.
Yes, Henry Dana Washburn, yeah. I don't think there's any barriers around that right now.
No, it's in the cemetery. That's a good place.
Yeah. That's all I can think of right now that I can present on that. Cheryl can give you some information on Major John Chun.
Okay. Now, most of us raised around Universal, in Universal, we know who he is. He was the first settler of Universal. Halfway up Bunsen Hill was his property. He settled in 1819. He was a brevet major in the War of 1812, and that just means he was promoted to major for outstanding bravery at the Battle of Erie, and won a title but not a pay. He was still paid captain, so it's kind of interesting. He settled, like I said, he settled there in 1819, retired from the Army, 1821, came back and got married and settled on the land. And he was buried at the Chun-Scott Cemetery, and we cannot have a marker for a cemetery anymore. Casey Pfeiffer said it has to be a person or a location. We chose to have one erected at the cemetery on 63, but yet be just about him, and maybe a family or two that's buried there. Secondary location, I meet with Doug Martin next month on about if you have to have two locations. They just won't take one. Casey wants two. 99% sure it'll be at the first location, but you have to have a backup. And I'm going to see about putting it right in front of the town hall in Universal. It was platted as Chun's Ford after him in 1910. The ford is where he crossed Brulett's Creek.
Yeah.
And that's where he crossed, and his land was right up the road, so it is still called Chun's Ford. The original bridge that was there was burnt down in 1967, I'm thinking, by arsonists, and we have the metal bridge now, but it is still Chun's Ford. And if you talk to most of the people in Universal, it's Chun's.
You know what we ought to do? We ought to go ahead and get a sign put up at that.
You what?
That bridge there now.
Yeah.
We need to get a county sign put up and say Chun's Ford Bridge.
Yeah,
That
it
would be-
is.
it
And
is-
that's
is
what
it-
everybody still calls it in
No, I mean,
Universal.
is there a name up there for that bridge?
Well, there's in, I see
Yeah, I mean,
it
we-
online, the old
be
covered
nice.
bridge was
Part of
known as
history.
Chun's Ford Bridge.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
And now that's what they call the metal bridge that's there, the older people do.
Yeah.
And then that's basically it. He was the founder of our little town.
Yeah.
Most people know him as that. But they also, when he was with the military, he was vital in going and setting in on peace treaties and help brokering different peace treaties and after the War of 1812. He was at Green Bay, he was in Pennsylvania, he was in Ohio, he was everywhere. So I think that just needs to be known, that we have someone that needs acknowledged.
I do want to say, working with George and Cheryl and Britt and some of the other people that are locally, we've done a lot historically for this county that's never been done. I think of when the Trading Post project, even though it's right on the line, it's both Vermillion and Vigo County.
Yeah.
But you wrote a book on that, and that
Well, basically.
George wrote a book on that, and it's in the local library. And then the Chung's Ford Cemetery project, Cheryl is writing a book on that project. So the stuff that we're doing locally is not only for today, but it's for tomorrow. We're preserving it with actual written books. And
I'd
so
like to
people don't really
interject
understand that.
some other information. The historical marker program through the Indiana Historical Bureau, once those are erected, they want a dedication.
Yep.
And I had met with some other guys at the old French house in Vincennes about 3 years ago. A Chief Craig Harper, who's the chief of the Peoria in Oklahoma, which the Piankashaw had merged with back in the 1800s. I had sent an email, well, actually I replied to an email from John May, who is with the Vincennes State Historic Sites, because he was wanting me to participate in an activity down there come spring. I put in there asking what arrangements that they made to get Chief Harper to come, and I haven't heard anything from him. Jill, the historian at the Indiana Historical Bureau, said that she could contact the Miami Nation of Indiana for their input, and then they could participate. So I don't know what additional expenses will be there if we try to get Chief Harper to come here.
I wouldn't worry about it.
I don't know.
We'll make it work. What I'm recommending is that we come up with, for a total of those three, of at least $12,000 apply for the grant. The Chung Cemetery, which has been ongoing for 4 or 5 years, we're getting ready to put it together. It's going to come together, and everybody's going to say how nice it is when it's done.
Yeah, and
but that's all come together. So I'm recommending $12,000 to do those projects. And you think that's a good aggregate amount to cover that? You think we'll be okay?
Probably, yeah. It's Mary Dana Washburn display in the library.
Yeah, I think that's just that's a whole other separate animal there, I think.
Yeah, because they've got a display in the library, but they need a head that Bill Wolf had offered to.
Well, let's when you get ready to write the grant, is this next week or so, we'll get together and I'll go with you and we'll help you.
I was hoping Melissa could be here.
She's sick.
She's
Very sick. Very sick.
Sean and Connie are both working, and Mike had a doctor's appointment this morning, so I left us.
Okay. Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. We gotta move on. We have a student here. I hope she's not bored to death. A lot of history. We love history. Mark, do you have anything you need to say so we can get you out of here? I mean, I'll hold you up.
Last week we passed a burn ban ordinance, or not an ordinance, but a quick one for, is it in place until December 12th? At that time we'll revisit it. I don't see any appreciable rain. Talked to the National Weather Service last week. They don't see any real rain, and this is supposed to be a very dry winter. I think we might end up with a ban in place for a little while. It's a standard ban. If you have a fire, it's got to be in a ring. You got to have a mesh top on it. It's got to be at least 10 inches high, and I think 25 inches in diameter. So, fire chiefs, myself, sheriff, and the commissioners all discussed it and agreed that this was the best thing to do. Another thing that I was here for was I did put in an application for ARP funding, or whatever we're calling that money this day. It ends up being a $57,000 project. I'm asking for $22,000 to put a siren in up in the north end of the county around Gessie. There are no sirens in that area. All of Highland Township's only got one siren in Perrysville. Okay. So it's a project that needs doing.
Makes sense.
There's a lot of confusion on how you apply for that fund. If you're a county office or your local people, So I went both ways. I went through the foundation and I dropped off 3 copies to Britain
Yeah,
for you
that's-
guys. Okey-dokey.
Very good.
Thank you.
DNR water access, I've been, know somewhat about it. If any of you guys who know about it, the state is doing a water study on the impacts of withdrawals from the Wabash area with what's going on in Lebanon. There are they want major amounts of water, and it could impact our area. So that's something that's coming up. If anybody else wants to say anything about that. They did take it away. They took away the one who was doing that research. They took it from out of the EDA, the state EDA jurisdiction, and put it into a different realm or different control. And I thought it was wise because EDA is overlooking their project, and you need a neutral party assessing this issue. So if any of you guys want to say anything about it, it's up to you.
I talked with Senator Deary about my opposition to transfer of waters over watersheds. And anyway, I don't know what position he's going to take with the legislature, but it is going to be legislated here, I expect, in the next year or two.
The problem is with water rights are kind of, you can't control water rights. You can't, I mean, like if you look here, we go to Shepherdsville and they put, Paris, Illinois put in $24 million to run a main from Vigo, Vermilion County area all the way over there. You look at up here, ones that run to Georgetown, am I right? Georgetown's got their running over there. So I don't know how that's going to
I'd like to add, I mean, pretty much the same as Britton. I spoke to the state legislator, and I also spoke to Tyler Warman from the governor's office expressing opposition. You know, there's a lot of concerns from the Wabash, from Tippecanoe County, clear down to Vigo. The amount of water they're talking about pumping out of the Wabash is insane per day. And I think, you know, residents that live along the Wabash in these small communities need some assurances that, you know, these wells aren't going to go dry, and there's just a lot of concerns, and I think we all three probably share those. But yeah, on the DNR water access, though, Tim, that's actually the Big Vermilion potential access to DNR, and I did hear back from them late yesterday evening. They're wanting to move forward on the project, and they're asking for a new survey to be done. What documents that are here at the courthouse aren't, I guess, suitable. They are willing to do the survey, but they are I think a year and a half out from doing one. So they asked the county if they would like to do one, and I have a quote from Roger, what's his last name, Meyer, to do one. He said it'd be $3,000. I asked DNR to pay for that. They said they would pay to upgrade the site, you know, which is upwards of $40,000 in that letter that we have. So I want to bring that to your guys' attention. Don't know if it's something we want to consider, but that's where we're at currently. Is they need a survey done, and we can let them do it if we want to wait a potential year and a half. That's what they say they're out, or we could order one ourselves and pay it out of pocket.
What's their construction schedule?
I have that. Yeah, I have that in an email. I think they said 2023. I want to say they said once everything was done with them, it would be 2 years. I think they had a schedule of 2 years.
After everything's done?
After everything is signed, sealed, and agreed to. Yep.
Can you keep that on the agenda for next meeting? We do some updates. I think it'd be good.
No, so you guys just need to let me know if you guys want to proceed on the.
We
could get another.
Send something to me so I can see what it is. I'm trying to figure out. Roger Meyer, is he a geologist? Is he a
surveyor?
What's his scope?
Actually, I think he's PA.
He's our building inspector.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm looking at his. He's an engineer, but is he?
He's
licensed to do this.
Surveyor.
Water surveyor, a geologist type to do a water study.
It's not a water study.
No, this
they
is
want
for
a survey of the ground.
The ground right there with this proposed DNR.
Legal survey.
I'm
not a
confused.
survey.
I'm thinking that also there ought to be a study done of the water issue. Not just. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, this is on that water access by the Big Vermilion. But yeah, I can.
I'm on a different realm here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But no, yeah, if you guys. Yeah, just let me know. I can send the thing from Roger to you and from Luke Rains for you guys to look at.
Flip back to the water issue now.
That's a big issue.
Well, part of the problem is the IEDC, the Indiana Economic Development Commission, is picking losers and winners as far as these projects go. And unfortunately, instead of citing these big projects where the resources are. They're citing them where it's
Advantageous
they're,
to them.
well, picking a winner in a locale that is more maybe political structure. It does have other things to go along with it, sure. But they're going to have to start looking at these things as far as the resources available to them to be able to do this. Florida's losing their water, or their groundwater, a foot a year. There's going to be a problem there where there's going to be an intrusion of brackish water into it. Water rights has not been an issue in Indiana for, well, forever. They finally got into some legislation about just reporting large withdrawals because of it. But we're going to have that problem between the watersheds, or the potable water that's available, and the contaminations that have happened to large areas of watersheds in Indiana. It is going to be a problem in Indiana. Indianapolis already has this problem. It's a known problem in the surrounding area. And why why the state keeps investing and pulling resources from places like Vermilion County and all the other counties within the Wabash Valley is just unconscionable to me, that they continue to do this. And so we would encourage the county to actually maybe even send a statement to them at some point in time about all this, about our feelings, not about our feelings, but our feelings, and about the ramifications of all this. So.
My apology, RJ. My mindset was on that other project,
No, that's
on
okay.
that withdrawal, and I support you 100%.
Yeah, but I'm with
that. Is a big deal.
Yeah, I think from twofold on Britton's letter thing, I think if all three of us, like the Board of Commissioners, would like to sign something, or maybe even the County Council, I think that would be prudent to send to the state. And then flip side to the DNR access.
Yeah.
If you guys are in favor of, if we could afford the $3,000 for Roger Meyer, I could seek out another quote, but I don't even know if that's a reasonable price. I assume it is.
It's a professional service. You don't have to do that. $3,000 is a good price for doing a survey.
Okay.
I have no problem with it.
Is that all right?
If we have if we can find the funding in our budget here.
You let me know if we got the funding. If we do, I'll contact her.
This is an asset to the county. That's a very, I mean, this is a minimal investment on our part.
A good project.
I was hoping they would pay for it, but.
Well, sure.
We are breaking records today. Wow. The Ready 2.0 application process. I do want to let you all know I have been in contact with Ford, who's over the Ready Grant Now administrator. There was 6 counties involved in this process, and there was only 5 seats that were on that board. He did inform me a couple days ago that we will have someone available. There is a position coming available that Vermilion County will have a seat on that board. That seat will be someone who's not an elected official. So we will be opening that up to suggestions of who we want to appoint. So as soon as I find out a date and time they want that, I'll put it out and everyone could be informed that position is open.
I believe it takes effect January 1st.
Okay. So I think it'll happen before the end of the year. So he told me he had the paperwork, and I just haven't got it yet. So I'll get that out, and then I would like to put that on the agenda for the next meeting. I think we need to have someone appointed within 2 weeks.
Well, hopefully we'll have an executive session looking at our applications for all these positions that we are up for.
We could include that with our yearly one. Okay. But we do have that is coming up, and we do have some the north garage, the north ambulance garage. We do have the engineering work done on that. We have the land donated. This is an excellent place to get ready money for that. It's an important part of the county. And again, we're ready for the project. We have it designed, we have the property, and I think it's a good goal. But there'd be other things could be involved in that. That's one of the biggest ones. IT contract, what do you want to say about that, Britt, real quick?
We need to go to executive session on that.
Okay.
To discuss the potential of whether we're going to have an in-house IT person or not.
We'll move on, if that's okay. Announcements. You have any luck on your bicentennial? I know you said something about $50,000, and a lot of people say, "Ooh, a bunch of money." Britton just put a number out there that's not been passed, or he's just trying to make something happen. I appreciate what he's doing. You got an update on that?
Next meeting, I'm going to announce a whole host of things I'd like to
Good.
do for the bicentennial.
Good.
And I have an idea of how we might be able to get to $50,000
Yeah.
plus. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll send it. I'm not ready to
Okay.
broadcast it, but we'll the next meeting anyway, if not before.
Okay. Open boards, the appointment for boards open December 13th. I am going to try to make some phone calls to different people on boards to find out if they're still interested. I would like to know that. And we also have to work on the stagger on the RISE board. We'd still need to work on that. I don't know if we ought to go by the oldest or longest and go in that procession, or be up to you guys to decide the next meeting.
I'm sorry.
The stagger on the RISE board. We haven't addressed that. We need to address that when that comes up at our next meeting as far as appointments.
Okay.
Okay, Doug Hess, he had received a certificate of economic development from Oklahoma University. I was hoping he was going to be here today. He couldn't be here today. He has a meeting. In fact, he's in a meeting right now with some potential prospects for the RISE, and so he couldn't be here today. And hopefully we'll have some good feedback from that. Had some people contact me about Hazel Bluff Road, issue there with in the dark they can't see the road and the road curves, and they want to get marking done on their road. I talked to Mike Kleik, and I asked you others if you have anything in your areas that you know of that needs marked, that maybe we can get that done. A lot of places where there's just plain you can't see.
There were like pavement markings on the road.
Yeah, a lot of these roads that get paved are black, really black, and then in the darkness sometimes you need in fog, you need that little bit of road white could save some accidents. So I'd like to see
some edge lines on the road.
Yeah, just
Okay, wide
edge
edge
line
lines.
roads. So if you guys think of any, it'd be nice if we could come up with a group of it to do instead of having to do one road, have them do the roads that are really potential hazard, in heavy fog. So Hazel Bluff, I've had a couple, call me about that over the years, and I think if we could put a package together, it's a safety item. I think it's a very important thing. So if you guys got anything that Mike like about, and maybe you can come up with a package to take care of some of that. December 6th, we have a 74 corridor meeting here. Been working on that for about 2 years, and I know Britt's worked on it some too. That'll be December 6th at 3 p.m. I do want to ask, and I know that Eric received information on this, but the health department down at South Main, we moved the health department. Britain has been totally worked on this. It's one of the best things I've seen anybody do, especially as commissioner. They moved the facility from the old doctor, what was his name?
Brock.
Who?
Brock. Used to be Dr. Brock's office.
Yeah, before that
The
used to
old
be
office. Who was before that?
Dr. Monticello. That was Dr. Monticello's office years ago. And they had just little rooms in there, and it was small. I mean, it's a little house the health department was in. And what happened is Britt worked with the hospital, and they moved all that facility down to that new facility. And you walk in there, it is wonderful and nice. They got big rooms, they got windows. It's a beautiful facility, and it's even in all that movement, which Britt's did every bit of it. They are actually is that the same cost, or maybe even a little bit less than what they was paying before. And they got a beautiful facility down there, and they had an open house. And I know that the paper wasn't there to do that, and I would ask that you would go down and do a report on that, because it's a big positive thing in our community. I mean, it's beautiful rooms, and it's been a major improvement. And I want to say I think Britt's done all the work on it. I think you need to give him the kudos, because it's a great project, and it's really a great improvement in our county. So is there a way you can do a story on that?
Yeah, we can probably do that.
I appreciate that. I'm going down my list, and you guys go on your list. How's that? Road marking, 74, health department. I do want to say something else about meetings we have here. A lot of times there's things being said, and I just want to let everybody know I'm here, open. If you want to call me, talk to me. There's a chair up here if anybody wants to come to a meeting. When it's done, come up, sit in a chair. Anybody. and you can ask me any question you want. I think it's important to be open and transparent, and we are, and I think the rest of the commissioners would agree that any questions you have, please bring it to us. There's a lot of talk and misinformation out there. I appreciate that. What do you all have to say in closing? Besides, thank God it's done.
I'm ready to get something to eat, but I doubt I'm going to be able to eat. It's going to be lunchtime when I get back.
Do you have anything, RJ?
No, I'm good.
We do need to set an executive session for two things. One is for the CO2 initiative, if we need to discuss something about that. And then the second is appointments for executive session, and also one for IT. We can do it all in one meeting, or if it's appropriate. But
The
those three
CO2
things.
paperwork from economic development, is that okay? We go ahead and sign that and move on with that, or is that something we need to?
I think I have a question. No.
Okay, I would just like to move it on. So if you
understand.
want to do it, let's have a meeting, get it done. I mean,
Well, that's not for the executive session, but
We did the 18th for the boards, is what we had said.
December 18th.
And then your meeting was 19th.
Okay.
That's what I have written down.
Well, the IT position that may be pushing us, if we're going to approve an EAS contract, wait until the 18th for that. So maybe we need more than one executive session if that's the case.
December the 6th?
Sooner than later. Than the 18th, I think, is out there a little way to make that type of, or to review that, because it may have other things that have to be done depending on what direction we go.
but I'm saying back on this paper that
Yep, you can just say we're gonna have one on this part and then one on that
Doug
part.
has to
We
send
just need
out.
48 hours for
December the 6th, we have at 3 for the one already set.
December 6th.
So we can do 2, or we move it up, or...
Well, you can do it all on the same executive session. You just got to list what you're
You just have to
discussing.
pinpoint site what you're having it
Yeah.
on.
Okay.
What time are you talking about? Because the other part of the 6th is an open meeting, right? With the
December
council.
6th.
And it starts
Oh,
at 3.
that's like a Wednesday, is it?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
3 p.m. is the meeting with the 74, right? And then what time is the council
That's
meeting?
in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Correct.
2 weeks.
What time will the council meeting be?
After, immediately following.
Well, I mean, if I think what we ought to do is set some times, and then the first meeting we'll just say this X time's it, and so everybody can. I don't want to hold everybody up.
Well, that's up to us to terminate it, so.
I would
December,
probably
if we,
suggest
3 and 4.
do the 6th and do the IT thing first, since it's just you guys, unless you want the council there, and then have the council come. Because they were there for both of the,
They're going to be for the 74.
And-
Okay, good.
and the
good.
ARPA.
Very good.
can do the appointments at a later date, that's fine, because that's going to maybe take some time.
Okay, back to the letter from Economic Development. Can we just sign that, or we have to do, you say you still have some questions on it?
I think RJ hit on it, when he sent, it says it's from the Economic Development Commission.
Yeah.
So why should we be signing it?
Well, we wouldn't sign it. That means the I don't think that it was appropriate for the Economic Development Commission to do it in the first place.
Right.
But we shouldn't be signing a letter from the Economic Development Commission, no.
They should be signing it.
If there's going to be somebody signing it, yeah.
Well, and when Doug responded, I kind of got the feeling that he wanted you guys to look at it.
It was a
before they
draft.
signed it.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what that
Maybe.
was?
Yeah, it was confusing to me too.
Okay.
Well, anyway.
Can we get that resolved by next meeting, or do we have to have it endorsement like
I
that?
would just have
We just talked to Doug about
Spur,
it.
What's that?
an endorsement like that, and they just want us to say, okay, if our names ain't on it anyway.
It was appropriate for us to look at. I agree with that. It's
Okay.
not appropriate for us to sign that
Okay.
letter.
Okay.
I don't think it was appropriate for them to send it in the first.
Okay, I agree
first
100%.
one. So,
Agree 100%. Okay. Closing. We're getting ready to close this meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second the motion.
Discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You should have did that. Go ahead, do it.